Hello again, everyone. So I'm going to be going over the first presentation of the chosen section of my book, The Way with Children. It is the 48th section called Alternatives. When I say section and the numbers of the sections, those are sections that are congruent with the same section in the book, the Tao Te Ching, of which you can find a translation in most bookstores and online. And there are several of them. I suggest you get one or two or three to sort of get a better understanding of what the Tao Te Ching generally is trying to say. I have another podcast that kind of describes my introduction into the world of the Tao Te Ching and why and how I decided to write a book like this. And so I'm going to go through this section. There are 81 sections, and we're starting with 48. Because the reason why I'm starting with 48 is because it is a very good entry point into an exploration for sort of a Western mind, what the Tao Te Ching is trying to say, for any mind, actually. So here we go. I'm going to just read the section. So, alternatives. Pursue knowledge of what to do with your children. Every day something is added to your list. Pursue the Tao. Every day something is dropped. The list grows shorter and shorter until you are no longer concerned with your doings, but instead with your being. Having arrived at this action-non-action, the wellspring of all alternatives becomes available to you. Nothing is left undone. You will sway your children by allowing them their own course. If you still have desires to control them, they are out of your reach. All right, so imagine, if you will, a culture that, I don't know, maybe it was on a isolated island or subcontinent or something like that. They didn't have access to other cultures. And in terms of music, the only thing they knew about was were harmonicas. They didn't know about any other style of musical instruments. They didn't know about the principles of how other musical instruments function. They didn't know anything. But they had a bunch of harmonicas somehow. So their conceptualization about how music is made is that there are, if you interject air into a hole or suck it out of a hole, in both instances, a tone is made. And tonally, one half step or whatever, one above the other, in and out, and there's little reeds that move, and there's room for air to come in and out from like side openings of this device, and there's holes in the front, and the holes are to be blown in and out of, and that's how it works. And it goes on for hundreds and hundreds of years. This culture has other aspects about it, but musically speaking, that's it. It's all about harmonica. And some people are really good at the harmonica. Some people aren't so good at the harmonica. Anytime there's a concert or something like that, it's just a whole bunch of harmonicas that are harmonizing or whatever. And it's literally, that's all they know. Okay. So, they have this life experience generationally, and the day's coming where they're going to encounter a whole other culture, but that hasn't happened yet because they just love their harmonica. So this is harmonica. I am going to explain something specifically about my experience with harmonicas, because it kind of goes along with this whole story. So the way that you play a harmonica, it has numbers across the top. And so you start, and on the left there's the lower number 1. It goes up to, in this case, to 10. It can go more than that, and that's how you play along. Well, when I encountered my first harmonica, it was on a shelf in my dad's closet, actually. And it just so happened that this particular harmonica didn't have numbers like this, and it was upside down sitting on the shelf. So when I picked it up to decide I wanted to learn how to play it, I picked it up upside down so that the high end is in the opposite direction of where it's supposed to be for traditional harmonica playing. But I had no idea. It was years later that I bought a harmonica that had numbers on it, and I tried to play it correctly, and just never could. I could never get the hang of it. And I realized in my mind that if I were to just keep practicing, just like I had originally with it in the upside down version, that I'd probably be able to figure it out. But it was just too much work. So I just stuck with what I knew. And so I played the harmonica upside down. I have not learned, even though I've played the harmonica for a while, I have never learned how to play it right side up, which is interesting because there were two things going on. One, I was not able to pick up a new way of doing things in its own right, but also I had something in my way, and I'll get to that in a second. Now, for me, Spanish was similar. I went to a language training center, and about 5 weeks into it, I remember standing up and yelling at the instructor, just so frustrated. Why is Spanish like this? I was just yelling, why is it like this? So in English, if you say, hey, you go to the store, you say, hey, you go to the store. If you say, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to go to the store. The I and the store and the you and the verb, they're just repeated. The word go is repeated. All of us are going to go to the store, and it's the word go over and over and over again. It's not we're going to go to the store. The word go doesn't change. So that's what I'm accustomed to as an English speaker. So now I have to, the verb changes in Spanish and other Latin-based languages, and other languages too. So if you change that more than one person is going to the store, the verb go, to go, gets modified. And it was driving me insane. I could not get my mind to understand, why is Spanish like that? It's dumb. Well, at the time, I didn't know that Latin was a hell of a lot older than English, and that's how that language is put together. For me, it was like, hey, if the verb is go, well, why can't you just use that in every instance with the letters G and O, go? Why does it have to turn into something else entirely? It was super frustrating. So I'm just yelling, why is it like this? And my teacher, I don't know if he was inspired or if he was just frustrated back with me, but he got a little bit loud and he goes, because it just is. That's how it is. And I remember going, and I just sat back on my chair dumbfounded, like, well, that's just how it is. It's not, I don't have to think, I don't have to get to Spanish through English. I don't have to translate how my mind currently works. It just is. So I had to begin to let go of what I already knew in order to pick up something else. I would have had to have let go of upside down harmonica in order to pick up normal harmonica. So now let's go back to this culture. All they know is harmonica. And they know a lot of songs in harmonica. For example, So this whole culture is like, we're all about the harmonica. Now, a boat arrives, and it's a whole other culture. And they're a flute culture. All they know is a flute, a particular kind of flute. This kind of flute. That's all they know. So they say, hey, we have flutes. So they hand this flute over to the harmonica people. And the harmonica people go, it's very interesting design. I can see that it has air places where the air can come out, just like on the edges of the harmonica here. So that's good. That makes sense. It has holes just like the harmonica does. Okay, that makes sense too. All right. We're pretty good at the harmonica, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to play this. And so the flute players are like, well, you know, we can kind of give you some pointers. Like, no, we're very good at musical instruments, so don't worry about it. I got this. Your thing is broken. So that's the end of the story. They just wouldn't get it. They'd be like, that's it. You blow through the holes, doesn't make any sound. You suck through the holes, doesn't make any sound. So the flute people are like, well, actually what you want to do is blow into the end. Like I said, it's broken. What I meant is blow through just one end. Well, when I take my harmonica and I blow through the parts that are not the normal hole, that doesn't seem to help anything. It doesn't. What you're saying makes no sense to me. I just don't know about that. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can figure this out. This makes sense. Man, what is wrong with you people? Why did you design such a weird thing? So the flute culture can say, well, no, it works. And the harmonica culture is like, no. And the flute player is like, well, yeah, it does. Now, at some point, the harmonica culture might say, okay, if you're convinced it works, demonstrate it, because I'm not buying it. So the flute culture people, one of them does something like this. So the harmonica people hear that, see it, they go, not sure if that's music, first of all, because it doesn't sound, I can decipher what we call differentiated notes in there somewhere. But that was very interesting, and that's very interesting. It's pretty cool. Maybe some of the younger people of the harmonica culture are looking at each other going, that is really cool. But we're not sure if we can even see that as a possibility, or, somebody might get mad at us because it's not harmonica-like enough. So there would be this weird thing going on for a particular reason. The reason is this. I have to unlearn in order to learn if I'm old enough. Little children can learn language rapidly compared to adults, based on probably several things, but one thing for sure, and that is they're not convinced that the only way to express something is by these words that they've been using now for 30, 50, 40, whatever, however many years. To them, somebody tells me that I can say pájaro for that little thing that's flying around, or that I can say bird. And I can roll with both of those just fine. Somebody tells me that that going to the store is pronounced going to the store, or vamos a ir a la tienda is we're going to the store. They both of these phrases are fine with them. So in other words, they don't have to do the step of letting go in order to learn something new that's always been there, by the way. Spanish has always been there. I just needed to let go of what I thought communication was in order to pick up something that was always there, that I had the physical facility to use and to communicate with. My ability was always there. So the harmonica players culture start to look at these things and then realize, okay, I have to accept the fact that blowing in and out of these holes isn't what it's about. And so that step actually has to happen first. Unlearn, 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 unlearn. I was not willing to unlearn upside down harmonica usage. You can still pull it off though, so that's not so much of a bad thing. But if there was a reason, if you could play better, more efficiently, if there was something that was an advantage to playing it right side up, I would never get there. I would have never gotten there right now, because I would not have wanted to have let go of what I already knew. So let's go back to this section. Pursue knowledge of what to do with your children every day something is added to your list. Pursue the Tao every day something is dropped. What if, I'm a dad and I'm just really, really disappointed in my boy, because he just can't seem to get it through his head that he needs to listen to the coach. If the coach is saying, take this stance before you come off the line, and my boy, he's not listening. My boy's not listening. And the coach is like, well, he could play more often if you just kind of learn these things. And so, I go to my kid, I try to show him, I try to teach him, I try to encourage him, and damn it, he's just not getting it. And, it's frustrating. I need to know what to do. Could you please explain to me what to do to sort of get through to my kid, to use, his God-given talents that he has to play this game? I played it, when I was his age, and I was actually really quite good. And so I don't get it. It's not for lack of genetic aptitude. So help me out here. What do I do? So somebody might actually, be hired by this father as a help your kid how to perform in sports life coach, and give him several pointers of what to do, to, help his child get it. Well, pursue the Tao every day something is dropped. And some of you out there might already be thinking, well, is this dad, what the hell is his problem? Does his son have to play football? Is this a necessity? Is this what his son wants to do? Well, unless you have lived in this man's shoes and in his life, he's in a harmonica playing culture. He doesn't even know that maybe his view of the importance of football in his life, and actually the good things that it gave to him as somebody growing up, confidence and all sorts of things. It was a good experience for him. Maybe the concept that it might not be this amazingly wonderful experience for his son is something that he can't unlearn that. So unless he can unlearn it, unless he can drop something off of his list, giving him pointers as to what to do to get his kid to come around is going to be useless. Now, what if there was something cool that this dad could learn in order to, have a good relationship with his boy, in order to help his boy find something his boy is interested in that would produce the same kinds of positive effects in his boy's life that he had through football in his life? Even if you sat him down and said, here are things to do to help your son, gain similar things in his life that you did through football, but through entirely different means. Maybe ballet, maybe basketball, maybe taekwondo, maybe cycling. Well, unless this dad can unlearn his interpretation of what football means, even knowing those things to do is going to come across as condescending, unaccepting. It's kind of a consolation prize that my kid is pretty good at taekwondo. But, if it would have been football, it probably would have been better. Go, good job on that kick. Just would have been football. So we see that it's important to unlearn. Now, as we go through this, every day something is dropped. The list grows shorter and shorter until you are no longer concerned with your doings, with what to do, but instead with your being. So this dad could have the way of being accepting, loving, encouraging, inspiring to his boy, as it translates to in numerous alternatives of how that might wash out, not just football, for example. Now, by the way, I'm using football as the example here. I've got nothing against football. It could just as easily be that a mom had a traumatic event in her life wherein she was abused by an uncle, let's say. And so she's just kind of got these glitchy things when it comes to men. And, she manages, figures out how to, get married. She has children. She's got boys, girls. And she essentially, by default, teaches her boys that they're sort of less human than her girls, that they're dangerous compared to girls, that they're unworthy compared to girls, that surely you're just like your dad, just wanting to, use and abuse women in his life, including your mother, and then, hauls off and just leaves. And that's how men are, and your damn dad. So this is, and then let's say that one of her sons, she's got one kid who he's fine, he's pretty resilient to that kind of stuff, but the other kid is like, I hate you. I cannot stand you, Mom. You suck. I want to go live with Dad. See? I told you were just like your dad. Well, you suck. And bye. And then this kid maybe gets into drugs and kind of goes back and forth between Dad's house and Mom's house because neither one of them can figure out how to control him. And both of them are yelling at whoever can help them. Please tell us what to do. And maybe this kid goes to, I don't know, a wilderness treatment program. And the parents are like, tell us what to do. And the dad's like, oh, this mom's crazy. And the mom's like, the dad is a horrible person. And the kid is like, I can't talk to either one of my parents. And tell me what to do as a kid. And so these parents might come into this scenario saying, okay, we sent our kid to this treatment program. You guys say that you work with families too. So that's awesome. Tell us what to do. We need to know what to do. Perhaps there's something that needs to be unlearned. And I've just used two examples. I can unlearn my assumptions about an entire genre of human being, males. I can unlearn my perceptions of the importance of something like football. Obviously, these are two examples of thousands of examples. Unlearning is just as important as learning. And by the way, your capacity as a parent, as a teacher, as somebody who works with children in treatment programs, as a therapist, as a coach, has always been there. Spanish has always been there. Flutes have always been there, just over there. I just don't know about them yet. I have the capacity to play a flute too, even though I'm from the harmonica culture. But I have to unlearn a little bit in order to learn that thing. So as a mom, as a dad, if I can unlearn, what are my hang-ups? What are my self-justifying modes of being in life? What do I need to let go of? And then suddenly, oh, I think I know what my son needs from me. He needs my emotional availability. Well, you're not going to have that pounded into you on some list of what to do with your child. It's about letting things drop off of your list. I no longer have this football hang-up. I no longer blame all men or all males and judge them kind of according to how I've got accustomed to because of how I grew up. We let go, we drop, things drop off of our list, and then suddenly all alternatives become available to us because we're not hiding them from ourselves by our own resistance. Okay, let's continue here. The list grows shorter and shorter until you're no longer concerned with your doings, but instead with your being. Having arrived at this action, non-action, the wellspring of all alternatives becomes available to you. Nothing is left undone. So, action, non-action. There's a character, the Chinese characters are wu and we. Wu, we, woo. It's do, not do. Action, no action, action. The idea is action born of way of being is not an action that has to be forced, manipulated, kind of pounded in. It's something that naturally flows. If I am this dad and I have let go, I've taken this hang up on football off of my list, taken that off of the list. I'm not worried about my to-dos. How do I tell me what to do to get my kid to cooperate with me? I've dropped all of that. And now what might occur to me? I see the glint in my son's eye when he is drawing. Wow, my kid really likes drawing. And he's really good at it too. I think I'm gonna go buy him a sketch pad. Whoa! That didn't come on a list. It just occurred to me. So hey, my son is enjoying drawing. I'm gonna go buy a sketch pad. Boom! Whoa! It's like the clouds opened and I knew exactly what to do. There's a lot of things I could have done actually that would have been right, and that's one of them. So all alternatives come into view when I have unlearned enough. So, having arrived at this action, non-action, the wellspring of all alternatives becomes available to you. Nothing is left undone. You will sway your children by allowing them their own course. If you still have desires to control them, they're out of your reach. Now, some of you out there, as I've said before, might be saying, well, you can't just allow them their own course. Well, none of us like to be controlled. There's partners out there, a partnership, a marriage, whatever description of the combination of parents that you have. If one of the partners, one of the spouses, wife, husband, whatever, said, I'm going to be back at 10 o'clock. I'm going to go out with the boys. I'm going to go out with the girlfriends, and they're back at 10:15. And so the other spouse says, well, Got back 15 minutes after we agreed, so I'm just going to have to ground you from that car. It makes the same amount of sense to a 17-year-old. None of us would get away with that. We certainly probably wouldn't be in that relationship with our partner for very much longer. We don't like being controlled as human beings. Now, if I am somebody who has let go enough, I've unlearned enough, then I will be inclined not to have to control. I'm just relating with people. Now, there are a lot of things to unlearn, by the way. So the harmonica culture that I talked about, they've had this culture for generations of time. So there are a lot of things for me as an individual, Shayne here. There's a lot of things for me. I'm 50 some odd years old. There's still things for me to unlearn. And I learned those things because of the culture that I grew up in, the family that I grew up in, the area of the country that I grew up in, the country in the world where I grew up in, and then also my series of choices along the way. So I have hang-ups, I have opinions, I have beliefs that may be ridiculously inaccurate. But as long as I am just thinking about my harmonica and I can't unlearn anything, then it doesn't matter what you show me what to do. It will not make sense to me, or I will do it with some sort of flavor of impatience or condescension to my child while I'm trying to do these things. It's my way of being, actually, that needs to change. And our way of being changes as we unlearn. The metaphor of the flute and the harmonica are a little weak there, like I've mentioned, because it's probably good to know how to play both of those. But y'all know what I mean. There are things for all of us to unlearn, and then all alternatives now will come into view. I won't feel like I have to control the situation. Some of us need to unlearn this sense of, if I don't control it, it's not going to go right. If I don't control it, it's not going to go right. That very belief and approach will actually invite resistance in other people. Well, you're controlling me, so suck it. I'm going to go do something else anyway, just because you're controlling me. Not all children are like that. A lot are. So if we're in a situation where we have a student who's struggling in our class, a child who's struggling in our family, a kid who's struggling on the team, a kiddo who's struggling in the treatment program, a client who's struggling, and my therapeutic things don't seem to be having an effect on them. What do I need to do differently? What might I need to unlearn? Maybe as a therapist, I need to refer this client out to somebody else because it's just not working. There's been much evidence that points to this idea that it's not the therapeutic modality that's the most important, it's the therapeutic alliance between the practitioner and the practitionee, the client. So maybe I need to learn something a little bit different about what it means to have a therapeutic alliance with those with whom I'm working. So what do I need to unlearn in order to let that be learned in me? And that's been my experience as well. These sorts of things that I'm talking about that might be needful for us to unlearn make what was always there sort of just become evident. I unlearn that harmonica is the only way to go, and now it's sort of evident that flutes work pretty well. I unlearn my insistence that Spanish needs to be configured like English, and suddenly Spanish is starting to come a little bit easier. If there was an advantage in harmonica playing to play right side up, and I decided to never do that, to never unlearn my upside downness, I'm never going to reach the potential that I could in literally playing the harmonica, because I can't unlearn the upside down part. So the section is 48. It's called Alternatives. Pursue knowledge of what to do with your children. Every day something's going to be added to the list, and it might be very, very unuseful. Maybe even will send us all backwards. Pursue the Tao. Every day something is dropped. And when it's dropped, now suddenly we know what to do. Pretty amazing. We're very capable as human beings. So the list grows shorter, and we're no longer concerned with our doings, but instead with our way of being. Having arrived at this action on action, all alternatives become available to me. An assignment connected with this section, an exercise. So think of a conflict that you've had with somebody in your life, hopefully rather recently. Think of not necessarily the subject matter of the conflict, but think about your possible assumptions about the subject matter of the conflict. So ask yourself, is there something in my belief system? Is there something in my insistence? Is there something in my growing up that is contributing to my side of the conflict? And you might be right, actually. You might be on the better side of the conflict, but it's still a conflict. So go to a third, fourth, fifth party and say, hey, had this conflict over here. I'm trying to turn this conflict into a window to my understanding of me and something that maybe I can just unlearn, that I can drop. Help me out. What do you think I believe, or what do you think I think? What do you think a hang up I might have that is part of the reason why I'm in this conflict over here? Help me out. And usually people will be happy to do that. You don't have to ask the person that you're in conflict with. They'll be too happy to do that. And you may not necessarily get an accurate read on you. But just try to contemplate, what do I need to let go? What do I need to unlearn? Help me, people in my life who care for me, know what I need to unlearn with that particular subject, that last conflict that I have. Then in the future, you have another one. Maybe there's a whole other thing to unlearn there. So after a while, you'll get used to this idea of exploring what you need to unlearn, exploring what you need to unlearn, exploring what you need to unlearn. Often we have to revisit exploring what we need to unlearn as well. I thought I had unlearned something 28 years ago, and about a year ago, I discovered I hadn't unlearned that as much as I thought I had, and it's kind of resurged. So I have to go back to, okay, maybe it's a different layer now of what I need to unlearn in order to see alternatives, in order to see, what I can do better, what I can do different. And then we will be better equipped to help people in our lives, especially the young people in our lives, rather than sort of through our own insecurities and hangups just seek to control everything around us, which is what we do when we haven't unlearned enough. So there you go. Alternatives. Buy my book online. There's an e-version, which is pretty inexpensive. You can get a physical version and just kind of get yourself accustomed to some of the sections. I'm going to do this out of order, so you'll never know which section I'm going to go over. We started with 48, so if you've kind of gone over all of them, you'll be kind of ready when I'm coming out with the new one. So look for the next one after this. I don't know which one it's going to be yet, but we'll go through all 81. Some of the concepts will be repeated a little bit, but hopefully every single one of them will have a new little piece to it that will be useful. So till next time.